Hello and welcome to Maximum Mariah Carey, the first talking book about Mariah. It was written and researched by Michael Sumption, music is by Amanda Thompson and it's read by Sian Jones. You can check out our full catalogue on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk.
It's kind of like you have to go through difficult times sometimes to get to your best place in terms of creativity. I wouldn't have written a lot of the songs I wrote for my first album had I not had a difficult childhood, you know. I couldn't have written a lot of the songs on Butterfly, which was my favorite album up until now, you know, had I not gone through a lot of the stuff that I went through in my, you know, the confining relationship that I was in. So everything, you know, happens for a reason.
Sexy, brassy, multi-talented, beautiful and successful beyond her wildest dreams, Mariah Carey is one of the most gifted female performers in the history of popular music, the most talked about diva of the late 20th century and beyond, a fascinating cultural icon and an inspiration to so many. The biggest selling female artist of the 1990s, she rose to megastardom on the back of a glorious 5-octave voice, a keen ear for quality material, and a protean talent which moves seamlessly from plaintive ballads to lung-bursting dance pop and hip-hop inflected R&B. Initially, she invited frequent comparisons with her rivals Celine Dion and Whitney Houston, but transcended their limitations by composing her own material. A singer since the age of 4, she has mapped out her own singular territory as a vocalist, writer, producer, actress, and label boss of the highest repute. Mariah has had more #1 singles than any other female artist, surpassing both Madonna and the Supremes, more #1 singles than any currently active recording artist, and has also seen more singles debut at pole position than any artist in history. With more #1 albums than any female artist in the 1990s, since her eponymous debut album in 1990, Mariah has enjoyed a remarkable sequence of smash hits, breaking records and setting new standards along the way. She is the only artist to have had a #1 single for every year of the 1990s, and has been honoured with the most significant awards in American popular music. She is indisputably the biggest female recording artist of the past decade, her sales exceeding 150 million albums. She has received the Artist of the Decade Award at the Billboard Music Awards, the World Music Award for Best-Selling Female Artist of the Millennium, and the coveted American Music Award for Special Achievement. She has surpassed the Beatles for the number of cumulative weeks spent atop the singles chart and redefined the concept, expectations and image of a female singer. Her dazzling multi-octave voice ruled the charts during the Clinton administration and has continued to break new ground after a mini-crisis of confidence threatened to destabilise her career. Her records are always expertly and slickly crafted and performed, and her sheer star quality has kept her well ahead of the pack of Mariah wannabes who followed in her wake. She has entered the new century with a feisty sense of purpose, ready to defend her urban vocalist crown against Whitney and any other iron-lung diva daring to make a challenge to her imposing or inspiring superiority. She is independent, intensely creative, diligent, and possesses a populist acumen that is astonishing. Complex, provocative, unpredictable, and inventive, she is an icon for our generation. She is a drama queen, a survivor, a lost child, and an angel, all wrapped up in one messy, demanding, explosive package of vim, energy, and sassiness. Despite seemingly living out her private life through the media in recent years, most notably with her public gaffes, tempestuous love life, record label dispute and mental dissolution, she is made of strong stuff and armed with a razor-sharp intelligence. Her return to the limelight, critical favour and popular affection is a testament to her reserves of willpower and dogged determination. This beautiful, gifted artist has carved out a remarkable body of work that invites comparison with that of any other female artist of the rock and roll era. Her dominance of her field is truly staggering. There seems to be no stopping her.
I've always written all my songs and stuff. People don't necessarily know that about me. Like, even as a teenager, when I first started out, like I wrote most of the songs from my first album when I was in high school, and I did the demos myself, and I actually feel like those demos were better than the songs after the record company got their hands on them. Go with this big producer or that big producer, because you lose some of your identity.
Mariah was born on the 27th of March 1970 in Long Island, New York. She was the third of 3 children, born to Patricia Hickey and Alfred Roy Carey, following Morgan and Allison. Her mother, a former opera singer with the New York City Opera and a vocal coach, was Irish, and her father, an aeronautical engineer, was African American and Venezuelan. She was raised in economically deprived conditions in Huntington, New York. Her mixed-race status and parents ensured that the family had to endure all kinds of racism and hostility. Her mother was disowned by her own family for marrying Alfred. The couple experienced an onslaught of atrocities, including having their cars blown up and their dogs poisoned. Their marriage collapsed under the strain of such malevolence, and they divorced when Mariah was just 3 years old. While she initially stayed in touch with her father, their relationship soured and became complicated. Mariah gravitated towards her mother, and her musical influence was unavoidable. Mariah's unusual name was derived from the song They Call the Wind Mariah from the Oscar-nominated musical Paint Your Wagon by Lerner and Loewe. By a twist of fate, another tune from that musical, I Was Born Under a Wandering Star by Lee Marvin, resided at the top of the charts on the day she was born. She began singing at the age of 4 and was nurtured musically by her mother at home. Patricia didn't force the issue of singing with her daughter, but recognised a genuine talent in the making. Mariah sang for friends at school parties, in talent shows and at folk music festivals. Her first gig was at the age of 13, when she supplied backing vocals for commercial jingles. She was writing her own songs by the time she'd entered junior high school and had developed her famous multi-octave range by the age of 17. As a very young child, she absorbed the good musical taste of her mother. She followed her mother round the house like a shadow, soaking up the tunes from the radio, her mother's record collection, or even television commercials. Patricia's favourite soul singers were Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder and Minnie Riperton, and the influence of these 3 artists seeped their way into Mariah's psyche. Minnie's distinctive soaring bird-like soprano would prove particularly important. With sister Allison and brother Morgan being 10 and 9 years older than her, and her mother working nights as a singer, Mariah was well versed in passing the time on her own. During this volatile, uncertain period, she would draw upon her resourcefulness to eat the icing out of jars by the spoonful and watch whatever she wanted on television. She was forced to grow up quickly and become independent. This independence and maturity created problems for Mariah at school because she was so much more grown up than her peers. She found it difficult to accept rules and regulations from the teachers, as she'd already been living like a little adult from an early age. Her mother once described her as 6 going on 35, such was her precocity and maturity. Yet it was far from plain sailing for the young Mariah. In many ways she was a troubled, confused, sad child. She bore the mental scars of the racism her mixed-race family encountered in the neighbourhood. Allison, the darkest skinned of the 3 siblings, received the worst treatment, being singled out in the street for racist slurs and beaten up. Morgan did his best to wade in and help his sister fend off the ignoramuses, despite himself being handicapped. Although the 60s had preached liberty in all its guises, the 1970s were slow to enforce such ideals, and so attitudes towards mixed-race marriages were far from enlightened. Morgan's dogged determination to live a relatively normal life in spite of his epilepsy and mild cerebral palsy provided a fertile source of inspiration to his younger sister. In turn, he was ceaselessly supportive of his sister's singing ambitions. In fact, it was his musical contacts which first gave Mariah a platform for her talents on recorded tape. A Manhattan group with access to a studio recruited the young Mariah as a backing vocalist, while they recorded demos to take around the record companies and try to gain that elusive first break. The big break never came, but the gig continued for months as Mariah repeatedly attended school late and exhausted. She received zero sympathy from teachers and pupils who saw her musical ambitions as hopelessly misguided. When she graduated, there was no fanfare, but a sense of relief on Mariah's part. She would take the subway across town from Long Island, having changed out of her school uniform, and then travel back at dawn to grab a few fitful hours of sleep before her long-suffering mother shook her awake in the morning. When she woke her daughter, she was often greeted by little more than a squeak, so hard had she exercised her voice the previous night. Increasingly aware that her voice would become her business card, Mariah consciously strove to strengthen her vocal muscles, which helped give her the multi-octave range for which she's famed. Her voice was her friend and her soulmate.
You know, it's like you take the good with the bad. At that point in my life, I had like $1 a day, and I had to decide whether to take the subway or get something to eat. So, you know, whatever. Now it's like I have to decide whether I want to, you know, I care more about walking outside and getting some paparazzi guy chasing me or, you know, not going outside at all.
Mariah's first break arrived through the support and patronage of Ben Margulies and Brenda K. Starr, two musicians who would play pivotal roles in the Mariah as Cinderella story. She met Margulies, 7 years older and an aspiring session musician, in Manhattan when she was treated to a session in a 24-track studio by her brother for her 16th birthday. There was a vacancy for someone to play keyboards on a tune Mariah had written with Gavin Christopher, and they stumbled upon Ben, who was primarily a drummer and couldn't play keyboards very well. However, they kept in touch and they cemented a songwriting partnership. Ben's father owned a carpentry factory in the New York suburb of Chelsea, where Ben had set up a basic studio to record his own material. Mariah soon found homework a poor second to recording songs. Their very first session together yielded the track Here We Go Round Again, which excited the pair of them. Mariah wrote all the verses out and stunned Ben with the depth, quality and resonance of her singing. Like Mariah, Ben was intent on securing a career in music, and it was this sense of ambition that sustained their friendship and creative relationship. There wasn't much in the way of equipment in that primitive little studio, but they chanced upon a winning formula with the demos they were churning out. The day after she graduated, Mariah left home and moved into a bedsit in Manhattan, paying the rent on her shabby, barren apartment by working as a waitress. She claims to have been sacked from 20 restaurants because of attitude problems. In a neighbouring bedsit, a woman walked around with a rat perch on her shoulder and was always hovering around in the communal kitchen when Mariah was cooking food. This was Mariah's stab at making her dreams come true. She'd dreamt of moving to Manhattan since the age of 10, when her mother drove her up out of the Midtown Tunnel, and the little Mariah would murmur to herself, "I'm going to come to this city and live here someday." It was her promised land. She did anything to make ends meet, working as a coat check and a hostess as well as a waitress in several humdrum establishments. She never told any of her employers about her musical ambitions, as the cliché of the struggling waitress who was on the verge of making it in showbiz was well worn and tiresome to those who heard it every day in the city. She had to struggle financially, often existing on one slice of cheese and a bagel or some pasta. It was a year of growing up, adjusting, learning and collaborating. She was so driven to succeed that she would cry herself to sleep at night and dream of nothing else but making it in music. Despite her svelte figure and amazing good looks, she didn't settle with any one boyfriend and hardly had time to become romantically involved with anybody. Her career remained her main priority and driving force. After nearly a year of slumming it in the big city, Mariah got her first major break. A singers group mentioned to Mariah that there was a vacancy for a backing singer with the rhythm and blues singer Brenda K. Starr, who'd charted with the song I Still Believe, later cut by Mariah herself. Initially, Mariah expressed reservations and was reticent about the idea, but decided to audition and got the gig. Rather than regard the young upstart as a threat, Brenda struck up a friendship with Mariah and boosted her confidence. In November 1988, Brenda was invited to a Friday night party, attended by various record company executives, and she insisted that her new pal joined her. Mariah brought along her latest demo tape on the off chance of bumping into someone with some clout in the industry. Tommy Mottola, the boss of Columbia CBS Records, and a man with an enviable track record in spotting talent, was at the party. He'd spent many years in artist management before making his mark in the record industry, so he was attuned to the talent rather than the dollar signs. The party brought Mariah and Mottola close enough for him to receive her demo tape. There was some confusion as to who it was who gave him the tape. Some argued that Mariah had offered it to Jerry Greenberg, another executive at Columbia, only for Mottola to intercept it. Brenda insisted that Mottola listened to this stunning talent, but even she figured that he might just throw it out of the window of his limo on the way home. Legend has it that Mottola listened to the tape in his chauffeur-driven limo on the way home from the party and told the driver to stop the car when he heard her voice. He doubled back to the party to find Mariah, but she had opted for an early night, leaving him in possession of a prized artefact with no contact number. He spent the weekend trying to track her down, but Brenda K. Starr's managers had no address, and he had to wait until the Monday to announce his interest in signing Mariah. Mottola had stumbled upon the real deal, a genuine star in the making. After years of struggling on the breadline, it seemed that Mariah was on the verge of hitting the big time and realising her lifelong dreams. Rhett Lawrence, a producer for the likes of Earth, Wind and Fire and Johnny Kemp, was asked to fly to New York to hear this prodigious talent and was taken aback by the power and maturity of her voice. Mariah was welcomed into the Mottola camp and signed with Randy Hoffman, a longtime associate of his who previously managed Hall & Oates and was now working with John Mellencamp. This gifted young starlet was signed up to Columbia Records and couldn't wait to unleash her dynamic vocals and emotionally charged music on an unsuspecting public.